Let me show you how easily misinformation spreads and how people who have no idea what they're talking about shouldn't be talking about graphene oxide at all. There is no graphene oxide in vaccines. I prepared many slides to demonstrate this.
We have gone back and forth with fact checkers, some independent researchers who have attempted to debunk the findings of Spanish researchers called La Quinta Columna, originally broken here on the Stu Peters Show by Dr. Jane Ruby.
Okay, so this Spanish study is the nucleus of all this graphene oxide misinformation. The author compared images of some vaccine liquid under a microscope with images of a graphene oxide liquid published online. He concluded they look similar and then said that the microscope doesn't provide conclusive evidence. For context as to how unscientific this is, here is some other graphene and graphene oxide microscope images. You're really going to look at all these and then definitively say, yep, that has graphene oxide in it. On page 3 of his paper, he says himself he tested only one vial. It was received by a random courier. The source is unknown. Who knows what the hell is in this random vial? His method is on page 8, and he says nowhere that he characterizes or verifies the liquid as the Pfizer vaccine. An actual study would first isolate the components of the liquid through solvent extraction, chromatography, crystallization, and filtration, evaporation, distillation, and then identify it with characterizing techniques such as infrared, UV, Raman spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction, etc. The university he works at declared his publication an unofficial report about an analysis of a sample of unknown origin with total lack of traceability. Now, this Dr. Jane Ruby, who reported this initially, is apparently a medical expert, but I tried to find her LinkedIn. It wasn't available. She's a doctor in psychology, not medicine, but calls herself a medical expert. And this is an important point too, that many scientists have tried to reconfirm this and have found nothing.
It's hard to fact check Karen Kingston. She is a former Pfizer employee, currently an analyst for the pharmaceutical and medical device industries. Karen, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your bravery, and we admire your desire to expose the truth behind what appears to be, to me at least, one of the most, if not the most evil agenda mankind has ever been subject to.
So Karen has a bachelor's of business administration and marketing. All of her work experience is in marketing. She was a Pfizer sales representative, not a scientist, not a medical degree, nothing to do with science, chemistry, anything.
Just lay it out there. Is graphene oxide in these shots?
100% it is, and it's irrefutable, and I'll walk you through it. So what's really important to know is that all of the mRNA vaccines contain what's called a pegylated lipid nanoparticle.
Irrefutable? Okay. Now, it's true they have PEG lipids, but she obviously has no idea what they are, what they do.
And that's why we have these four lipids, and then they put the graphene oxide. Now, what's interesting about the graphene oxide is that it's 4,000 times stronger than titanium and can withstand 1700 degree Fahrenheit temperature. So we took this very unstable virus, single helix virus, and we made it indestructible, or they made it indestructible.
So she pulls up this list of the Pfizer vaccine ingredients. Nowhere here does it say graphene oxide, and it absolutely would have to if it was in it. She says, we took this very unstable virus, we made it indestructible. The mRNA vaccines do not have the virus at all and do not have the ability to make the virus. She compares graphene oxide to titanium, but I just want to demonstrate that physical properties are very different to chemical properties. Titanium may be physically strong, but it readily reacts with air to form new compounds with different properties. Here are some other titanium compounds. Look how the melting, boiling points and water solubilities change dramatically. If you mix titanium with hydrogen fluoride, it quickly becomes a new compound. It has nothing to do with its physical strength. So back to the point, she's saying that this PEG lipid in the vaccine is bonded to graphene oxide.
So the pegylated lipids, if you take a look, it's PEG, P-E-G. They're made by a company called Sinopeg, which is S-N-O-P-E-G, and they're located in China.
So she found a company who makes all kinds of PEG lipids, literally hundreds. She admits that she literally Googled the ingredient and found this company. So many companies make PEG lipids. The company Sinopeg itself said it's never provided any lipid nanoparticles that include graphene oxide. A representative for Pfizer said none of our lipid nanoparticles for the Pfizer vaccine are manufactured in China. Sinopeg is not a manufacturer of the lipid nanoparticles used in their vaccine. The woman then randomly brings up these Moderna and Chinese vaccine patents. They are completely unrelated to the current vaccine's release. She hit Control F and found graphene oxide in one of these random vaccine patents. I'll note that patents are not studies, and this candidate never reached human testing phases.
And so if you want to know what is graphene, what they explain here on Sinopeg is it is the core shell structured polyethylene glycol functionalized graphene for energy storage polymer dielectrics, combined mechanical and dielectric performances.
I bet she felt so smart reading that title. So from this random manufacturer she found online, Sinopeg, she finds a study they did where they used a completely different type of PEG and bonded it with graphene oxide for improving conductivity in electronics. Here's their study that she pulled up. It notes they used a single terminal aminated polyethylene glycol monomethyl ether. This is what that looks like. It has a terminal amine group, an NH2 group. Here's the one Pfizer uses. It has a carboxyl group, which this one doesn't, which makes this nitrogen an amide, not an amine. amine. It also has 2 very long carbon chains, not hydrogens. It's very different chemically. Here's a completely different study in Nature that shows the one that Sinopec uses and how it bonds to graphene oxide. The one that Pfizer uses cannot do this. It requires these hydrogen atoms to bond to the carboxylic acid groups of the graphene oxide. These are being investigated with great success for chemotherapies. That's why it's so dangerous that now everyone's just going to think graphene oxide bad. The one that Pfizer uses cannot do this reaction. A little bit of chemistry. If you change one group on the same molecule, it completely changes its chemical properties. Even molecules with the exact same number and type of atoms can perform extremely differently based on how they're structured. For example, let's look at thalidomide. These molecules only differ in where the 6 carbon ring on the right is above or below the plane of the other ring. In our bodies, this makes one a sedative whilst the other can harm unborn children. With only a slight difference in the positioning of the atoms, it completely changes physiological behavior. This is why we research stuff and we don't just say graphene oxide titanium equals bad. Now finally, they're claiming that the mRNA vaccines contain 99% graphene oxide. What are the units of this? Grams per mil, grams per grams, moles per liter. Graphene oxide is hydrophilic, it's water soluble, and the vaccine contains lipids as well. We would see solid graphene oxide in the vaccine at these amounts. It would precipitate out of the solution. Even an 8% graphene oxide solution is thousands of times more viscous than water, and in a syringe it would feel like pushing honey. And most telling is that liquids that contain graphene or graphene oxide in any significant amount will not be transparent. These are 0.5% graphene oxide solutions. Does the vaccine look like this? Absolutely not. Sorry Karen, looks like your irrefutable evidence is completely refutable. Stop pretending you know anything about this stuff and spreading misinformation. Just stick to marketing, please.